Hey, this is truly Jacob, writer. Again, this is my pen writing / media name, so you probably won't see my face. Today we're going to go over Prince Caspian in the Chronicles of Narnia series by C.S. Lewis. This is a summary, so there are spoilers, so if you haven't read the book, why don't you go check it out at your local library, read it, and then if you want to watch the summary later, go ahead, watch it. So one of the things we will be going over too at the very end is what are the moral lessons of this story. So here is Narnia. So basically what happened is it starts off with, oh gosh, sorry. I'm going to just try to go through the pictures, but sometimes it takes a while to flip. So it starts off where Peter, Edmund, Lucy, they're at a train station. They're going back to school. It seems like they all have their separate schools. And then before they go their separate directions, they feel like something's pulling them, and they end up in Narnia. But they're not sure where they are. They see they're on an island, and the land is drastically different. So they're not sure where they are. Then they see these old remains, and they're like, ooh, these are ancient ruins in Narnia. Then, like, they're eating apples because there's apple trees in the area, and they're like, I don't know, it seems familiar, but I'm not sure where I am. Then they keep going, and they're like, ooh, and they find, what do they find? They find the treasury, and when it's like they find the treasury, then they're like, oh yeah, these are the ancient ruins of Caspian, where we used to be kings and queens of Narnia. And there is this dwarf that was sent to try to find Aslan, the lion that's made the world of Narnia, or try to find the ancient kings and queens of Narnia. And Marines were in a boat, like, trying to take him somewhere, and he was chained up. And so Queen Susan saw that he was chained up and stuff, and they rescued him. And then they were like, where should we go? What should we do? How do we get off this island? And they were devising a plan. Meanwhile, so there was this Prince Caspian, and he had an old nurse, and the nursemaid told him stories of Narnia and stuff like that, and dancing trees and stuff like that. And he made the mistake and told his uncle what he had learned from his nursemaid, and who told him those stories, because they were the Marines were all fearful of the Narnians because they overtook the kingdom and everything. So they ended up getting Prince Caspian a tutor, and he taught him different things, and in secret talked about Narnia. So eventually one night, the tutor brought him to a secret location, and anytime he brought Prince Caspian to the secret location, then he knew, okay, don't tell my uncle about these things, because he clearly told him, you know, I could be killed or murdered or, you know, sent away like the nursemaid. So, but the tutor eventually told him, hey, your uncle wasn't the original rightful king of Narnia. Your father was, and he killed your father, and your mother died and stuff like that. So you need to flee because his wife had a son, and he will make that son the next king. So if you don't flee and run for your life, then you're going to be killed. And so Prince Caspian believed his tutor, and so he got on his horse and fled to Archland, or to the direction of Archland, until he could encounter the real Narnians, the talking animals that could talk or whatever. And then he eventually hit a tree branch and fell off his horse, and then a badger and 2 dwarfs took him in, and he eventually told them, I am the prince. And they were like, I don't know about you, because you're a telemarine. But he's like, I've been waiting to hear of Narnia or sea talking animals my whole life. I've been waiting for this my whole life. So he kept going and stuff like that. And so, like, they kept talking. And then he met different Narnians, and then they were all dancing around. He saw them all dancing around, and they were like, and he was so excited about them, they eventually accepted him as prince because he was excited. He accepted them in all their different forms. And so they were discussing what they should do. And then eventually they went into the mound where the stone table was, and they discussed it further, and his tutor ended up catching up with them and finding them, and they're like, what should we do? We have the horn of Susan. Should we blow it? Should we not blow it? And then they discussed it eventually, and they decided to blow it. And that's how they ended up, King Peter, Queen Susan, King Edmund, and Queen Lucy ended up in Narnia, but they ended up at Cair Paravel. And so, you know, there was a giant, and they're showing all the different Narnians of who was in allegiance with the Narnians. So, to prepare and get some of their skills back, like King Peter, King Edmund, Queen Susan, and Lucy, well, the boys had a sword fighting contest to see who was a better swords person, and Susan practiced shooting her arrows into apples. So eventually the plan was, okay, let's take the boat and let's go to the waterway and cross over, and we'll just you'll see the stone table from afar, and then you'll be there really, really quick. But they hadn't been there in so many years that they didn't realize that the forest was overgrown and grew so heavily around the shore that they literally could not find their way. So they were going around for hours and hours. So Lucy actually saw Aslan, but no one else could. And Aslan was like, come follow me up on the ridge. And they didn't value Lucy's opinion because they didn't see Aslan the lion. So they traipsed around and lost the day. And it kept going over and over, wandering around. And then eventually they came to this place where it's like they were almost near Prince Caspian, but they were closer to his uncle's army, so arrows were shooting over them, so they had to backtrack. So again, they lost the day. And then finally Lucy sees Aslan again, and she ends up talking with him, and he, like, the trees were dormant and hiding from the Telemarines, the dancing trees and everything. So what, he, like, breathes on them and they come back to life. And, but also, Lucy was like, I couldn't have gone. It was 3 against 1. And Aslan's like, well, basically gives her this look of like, yeah, you could have. You didn't have to, like, be pressured to not follow me. You could have followed me anyways. And so this time she puts her foot down and she's like, I have seen Aslan, and wakes her brothers and sisters up and is like, I'm gonna go follow him even if you don't join me. Even if you can't see him, I'm gonna go follow him. And so they cross a stream and different things. And like Edmund sees the shadow of Aslan in the moonlight. And then eventually when they're almost near Prince Caspian's camp, then they see him. And Aslan, like, has an interesting introduction with the dwarf. And the dwarf ends up being okay with Aslan. But before, he wasn't sure about Aslan. And then when they get to the camp, Aslan told King Peter and King Edmund, go into the mound because you're needed there immediately. And then Queen Lucy and Queen Susan see a whole bunch of people dancing. And it's like they're like acting out an old Narnian play before their time as kings and queens. So, King Peter and King Edmund, they come in the mound, and it takes a while to get to the stone table underneath the mound, and they overhear Prince Caspian talking to a bunch of others. And what ends up happening is there's this wolf-like creature and another dwarf and something else, and they're like, Aslan's not coming aloft. The ancient kings and queens aren't coming soon enough. They're probably not going to help us. There is someone else who could help us. The White Witch. We could do something to get the White Witch back in power and to take over Narnia, because they didn't live during the times of the White Witch, so they don't actually know how bad she treated all of her subjects too. So they're thinking it would be better to go back to the White Witch. And so in the process of all of that, Peter, Edmund, and the other dwarf that got them come in, and the evil villains die because there's like a sword fight. The light goes out and they have to light a candle to see again. So then, to buy Aslan time, they conduct a plan of doing a one-on-one battle with the prince's uncle. And they debate on who to send for the message of, like, can you do one-on-one combat? Because they want to make sure they look good. And the mouse Reaper cheap volunteers, but that they're not sure if that's a good idea. But anyways, King Peter ends up doing one-on-one combat with the uncle, and he gets hurt a little bit. But he finds that if he stays like uphill, he gets more of the upper hand. And then before like the battle was fully over, mice went in and like stabbed the feet of the Telemarines. And then like Aslan and the two girls, Queen Susan and Queen Lucy, they're going around, and the bridge disappears to get over the river because the Telemarines are really scared of the woods, because they're scared of ghosts, or they're scared of the moving trees and the Narnians and everything. And they gather more and more people in the area to join them. And the ones that are uneasy about Aslan, they flee, they disappear. And then again in the battle with the mice, Reepicheep was the main leader, stabbing other people. He got badly injured, so Lucy had to use her cordial to heal him, and she was able to heal him everything but his tail. And he was like, I lost my tail, I lost my tail. It's like, it's a mouse's honor to have a tail. And so even these mice were like, oh, we need our leader to have a tail. We'd rather our tails be cut off than him to lose his honor. And because they were willing to lose their tail, Aslan was like, okay, you can have your tail back. And he breathed or did something, and Reepicheep got his tail back. And so the Telmarines, like, the battle stopped, and the Telmarines didn't know what to think of it, but the Narnians had this big feast, and they were nearby, the Telmarines, and they just, like, eat pretty much all night, or, you know, off and on, or whenever they were hungry. And then at the very end, it's like Aslan tells them, okay, he creates a door, a walkway that they can go through, and he's like, hey, you actually come from the same land that King Peter, King Edmund, Queen Susan, and Queen Lucy came from. Do you want to walk and go back home? Here's a doorway to go back to your home. So one is brave enough to go, and then they don't know what happens to him because you can't see the other land from here. So they're like, Aslan, you killed him. You killed him. So that's when King Peter and Queen Susan, they confide to Edmund and Lucy, and it's like, it's time for us to go, but you guys are going to come back. We're not going to come back because we're going to be too old next time you come. So we're not going to be allowed to come back to Narnia. And so it seems like there's some kind of sadness with the younger two, where it's like, oh no, like, our time in Narnia could come to an end where we may not be able to come back again. And so there's sadness, but like Peter and Susan are okay with it. And so they go through the door and they're back at the railway station where they started off, and then they're gonna part separate ways to go to their places of schooling, because it sounds like it was like different boarding schools. So what are the moral lessons from this story? So one of the things that I get out of this story is, number one, Prince Caspian was in this dire straits, basically. He wasn't in a very loving home environment. Basically, his uncle only wanted to keep him around because he didn't have a son of his own to pass the throne to. And then if he kept him around while his son was there, like, the Narnians could be like, this is the true king, and kill him, his wife, and his son. So like that was his plan, to just kill his nephew. So it was not a loving environment at all. It was like, I'd rather keep you around because I'd rather the kingdom go to someone who has my DNA blood or my genetics somehow, and at least if I train you, I can mold you and teach you to be scared of Narnians and to kill all the Narnians and stuff like that. So he was not in a loving environment. So the nursemaid was very kind and loving to him. His tutor was more kind and loving to him. So literally, is he going to believe and it seemed like his uncle and his aunt didn't really spend much time with him at all. So that it's like they paid more attention to him. So are you going to believe the ones that are actually taking care of you more? Or are you going to believe and they're acting more loving and kind to you than the one that's like, I want nothing to do with you? Like they act like, I wish you were dead already. I wish you didn't exist. So he leaves and he runs for his life, and then he's so excited to meet all these Narnians, even though he's a telemarine. So he knows enough where he's like, he feels bad for being born a telemarine. And so because of that, the Narnians accept him as their rightful prince. And then at the end, when Aslan is like, do you think you're ready to be a prince? He tells the truth and he's like, no, I'm really, really young. I'm not ready. And so he gets knighted. So he's going to go through this teaching, like people that are older than him or individuals that are older than him and the talking animals that understand how things are supposed to work and have different skill sets. They're going to teach him the proper skill sets to be able to lead and be a true king of Narnia. So he's not just getting placed at the top command of being king. He's going to learn those skills. And so one of the moral lessons I get out of it is like, if you're in a very bad environment that isn't loving, then it's like obviously the people that are loving and kind to you, you're going to be attracted to them and you're going to want to like intermingle with them because they're going to help provide what you need to be a successful person in life. And then also you have like the moral lesson, or it's common sense, where it's like, if you are given a profession, if you're learning a profession, you need to develop those skill traits. You can't just be at the bottom and be like put in a position where you're in charge of everything. You have to learn the proper skills so that you can do your work, whatever work it is that you need to do. So you have to learn, you have to grow, and you need a loving environment. You need a team of individuals to help you be successful and to encourage everyone else to be successful. So that's what I get from this story. So again, the object of these videos is that if you have kids, like, would you read this story to your kid and or child? Would you want them to read it? And what moral lessons could you get out of this? What moral lessons could you teach if you allowed your kid to read this book or whatever? So if you have any other ideas or moral lessons that you want to help instill in your kids through this story, if there's something else you got out of it that I didn't go over, feel free to put that in the comment section below. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to like and subscribe to this channel if you want. Until next time.